Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Factoraly. So Bruce and I are both voiceover artists. We spend an awful lot of time sitting in a box, talking into a microphone with no one else in our lives at all. But every now and then we get together and we discuss interesting, random facts.
You say interesting.
It's open to interpretation, I'm aware.
Yes. Interesting to us.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, honestly, when you're doing these things, you've got to be interested in the stuff that you're talking about. Otherwise,
Totally.
What's the point?
We have deleted a couple of episodes that turned out to be utter codswallop.
Yes.
So yeah, we only
Although
let
the
loose.
codswallop one was fine.
Oh, the codswallop one wasn't codswallop, ironically. So, Bruce, tell our dear listeners what we're talking about this week.
Right. Well, we were thinking about it and we decided to talk about paper. And that's a bit dull.
Yeah.
So we thought, what about things you can do with paper? Paper art.
Paper art.
So this week's episode is all about paper art, things you can make with paper or do with paper that are arty or crafty or clever in some way or make more of that material.
Indeed. My knowledge of paper art up until this point was fairly minimalist. When you, Bruce, suggested let's do an episode on paper art, I instantly, I don't know what you originally thought as you were saying that. Did you have like sort of one keyword that popped up into your head when you said paper art?
Yes, but it was the wrong one. Because I thought décolletage when I actually meant découpage, and they are quite different.
They are quite different, as I'm sure we'll soon find out. My instant thought when you said paper art was those Christmas decorations.
Yes.
You know, when you get several sheets of paper and you put them together, you fold them in half, and you cut out half of a Christmas tree or half of a snowman or half of a snowflake, and then you open them up and they make a sort of a 3D fan shape thingy. My household as a child was full of these things, and that's instantly where I went when you said paper art. I thought, how the heck are we going to do an episode on that? But there's more to it than that,
There is
thankfully.
so much more. So much more. I mean, I remember when I was a kid doing the similar thing, but with little people holding hands.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember those. You did them at school.
Yes.
Or paper chains.
Yes, paper chains at Christmas, getting your lips all covered in glue. So where should we start? Do you want to start with licking bits of paper or cutting bits of paper or folding bits of paper?
Oof, crikey. Take your pick. Lick, fold or glue.
Let's start with fold, because I think that's the thing that's people are going to go into first.
It's the most obvious, isn't it?
And origami.
Origami. What do you know about origami, Bruce?
I know that I now know two more Japanese words than I did.
Good. Ori and gami.
Ori and kame, which is paper and fold.
As literal as that, it means paper fold.
Yes. Nice and easy. And it's probably about 2,000 years old.
Crikey.
Probably came from China. When basically the first time that paper was invented. In the invention of paper, the first invention of folding paper was probably there as well. And when you see that you can fold paper, you can do things with folded paper.
Yes.
But it's so expensive paper when it first comes out that you have to restrict it to very rich people or to very religious people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the monks would use origami to make religious symbolism and things like that.
Right.
And it was very time consuming. And if you're a monk, you've got nothing but time. So that was done like 2,000 years ago. But then modern origami has actually not been around for that long. Modern origami started in about 1880.
Recent as that, huh?
Can you do any origami?
I can't. I've tried many times. My son's actually quite good at it. But no, I have no dexterity in my hands whatsoever.
I mean, the only thing I can really do fast and well in origami is to make a paper airplane.
Okay, well, yeah, if we can classify paper aeroplanes as origami, then I'm a master of origami.
Oh, no, there you go. Well, it is still folding paper, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
There are people who take it very seriously. Paper aeroplanes. The world record is held by 3 aerospace engineers. The world record for the best paper aeroplane is about 280 feet.
Goodness me.
Which is nearly the length of a football pitch.
Oh, crikey.
That's hand thrown.
Yeah.
There's not any.
Not catapulted or anything, yeah. That's some very good engineering.
That took about 6 seconds to get that sort of nearly 300 feet. But is that art, or is that craft, or is that science?
Oh, or is there even a difference?
So, Simon, you've always got good records on stuff. Have you got any good records on origami?
Yes. Again, thanks to the Guinness Book of Records, the largest number of origami pieces collated together. This is impressive. 6,110 origami flowers were made and put together into one single art installation, I suppose.
Wow.
They were created by Mori Elementary School in Japan just last year, 2022.
Gosh, that's impressive stuff.
It's a lot of origami.
I mean, there are other sorts of folded paper that aren't origami,
Right.
which I personally think are incredibly artistic. And that is the pop-up book.
Not for a second did I think you would be bringing pop-up books into this.
I mean, the pop-up book is something that is a work of art. I mean, there are book collectors that actually collect very early pop-up books, and there are also some sort of fairly modern ones that are sort of limited edition.
Yeah.
That have become quite rare. But the pop-up book was first invented a lot longer ago than you might think, 1240.
Crikey.
There was a guy called Matthew Paris in 1240 who he had a book that had like rotating wheels within wheels. You know those books that you kind of you can rotate a wheel in a pop-up book. And it was used to calculate holidays and to do various sort of like religious things.
Oh, so it was functional. It was a working tool. It wasn't just for lols.
No, it was almost like a slide rule.
Oh, brilliant.
But, children obviously love a pop-up book. And the first kids' pop-up books were sort of around about in the 1700s.
Wow.
And they were called Lift the Flap, and they were very basic. So basic. So you had like multiple layers of paper that were cut.
Yes.
And you could ask a question and then lift a flap and see an answer underneath.
Yes, okay. Yeah.
But they also used that technology slightly earlier, actually, in about 1600s, to demonstrate anatomy. So they would have pop-up books with layers. So you could kind of like peel the skin off and then peel the musculature off and then look at the innards. And they were actually used as instruction books for medical students and surgeons.
As guidebooks.
As guidebooks. So rather than actually having to cut real people up, you could just do it in paper. Also in the 1800s, for children, they came up with ones where you can actually take little figures out of the book that popped up. And then there was clothing that went on the figure that matched the story that was in the book.
Oh, I have a vague recollection of that from my childhood, yeah.
Well, my sister used to get a magazine, I think, called Bunty, a comic called Bunty.
Right. I've heard of that.
And on the back page, I think it had like a cutout character that you could then dress up in various different outfits.
Huh.
I don't know why I remember that. Probably because I used to steal her copy of Bunty and she used to steal my copy of Tiger and Jag.
Oh, sounds like the affair that my Action Man had with my sister's Cindy.
I have a pop-up book myself, which is called the Formula One Pack, the most comprehensive interactive 3D study on motor racing ever.
Wow.
And I will show this to Simon, and then we will see what his reaction is. Here we go.
I'm excited already. Nice, yes. Okay, so there's a racing car that's popped up with little facts about it, all very simple. And oh my goodness me. Okay, that's a very different page. Crikey, so that's the central console of a racing car.
Yeah.
That's just popped up in the middle of the book. Oh, wow. An actual F1 car.
A whole Ferrari.
Whoa. That's impressive. I don't even understand the mechanics of how that works in the page. That's just bizarre.
It's a fabulous book. I've had it for a few years. It was a present. And this is one of the books I would never part with.
Brilliant. You'll have to upload a photo of that if our listeners go to our website, factoraly.com. There is a page there where we're putting up photos, maps, images, all of the things that you sadly can't see that we're describing to you. You can go and see them on our website. So hopefully that that book will make it there.
I will make sure that there is something referring to the book.
Brilliant.
So, Simon, what's your take on paper art?
Well, so following on from folding paper, one of the other things you can do is to cut paper.
Uh-huh.
You said Japanese origami means fold paper. Kirigami means to cut paper. And I had no idea that this was even a thing until quite recently. One of my ongoing voiceover jobs is to provide examples of English dialogue for Chinese children learning English. And these scripts keep on talking about paper cutting. His hobby is paper cutting. I'm going to do some paper cutting. And I had no idea what this referred to, so I went on a jolly jaunt online to find out. And it's a whole thing. It's probably quite obvious now that I've found it because I recognize what it looks like. But essentially, one single sheet of paper with lots of delicate, intricate cuts using either scissors, craft knives, tiny little scalpels to make a beautiful picture. And this originated in China. As you said, that's pretty much where paper comes from, and therefore an awful lot of the paper arts come from that area as well.
Yes.
This particular form of paper cutting, there's a style of it called Xianzi, and Xianzi was created in the 4th or 5th century in China, and essentially it started off as a template for embroidery. So people would cut out these pictures from a single sheet of paper and lay them onto a piece of fabric as a template for embroidery. And then sooner or later people realized, actually, these are pretty nice just on their own, regardless of the embroidery. So they started making these things, and it's a whole pastime, it's a whole industry in China and Japan as well now, but originally in China. You can just buy these beautiful, elaborate, intricate pieces of artwork, and they're often sort of focused around Chinese culture. So, there are lots of dragons, there are lots of zodiac signs, there are lots of mountains and flowers and things like that are just so intricate and beautiful. And this paper cutting has since made its way to all parts of the world. Indonesia, the Philippines, Poland, Israel, Sweden, Switzerland, all of these places have their own very unique take on paper cutting, and they're just stunning. The largest ever. I've been dipping into the Guinness Book of Records a lot recently. I love this website. The largest ever piece of paper cutting was rectangular in shape, 1 meter wide by 143 meters long.
That's longer than wallpaper.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot longer than wallpaper. And this thing took an entire team of people. It's the length of the bio tapestry, if not longer.
Yes.
All made out of cut out paper. It's incredible.
What story does it tell?
I didn't get as far as looking that up. It was just pretty.
Just pretty. Fair enough. Because you can also scroll paper. There's a thing called quilling.
There is.
Where you kind of like, you sort of score the back of a piece of paper to turn it into like a spiral curl and then do things with it that way.
Yeah.
But the kirigami or the gigiri or whatever it is
kirigami
is brilliant.
It's incredible. Quilling itself is something that I had never heard of until recently. Do you know why it's called quilling?
Is it because you use feathers?
Yeah. You take a little strip of paper about 1 centimetre in diameter. Can you have a diameter of something that's rectangular? Width. You take a piece of paper that's about 1 centimetre in width, and you wrap it around a quill, a feather, and it turns it into a nice little coiled up spiral. And you arrange these things edgeways on, so you put them on a surface, sideways on, so that they actually raise off the surface of the frame or the wood or the paper or whatever it is that you're laying it onto. And it creates this beautiful 3D piece of artwork with shadows and texture and very pretty. I found out that there are some technical terms for quilling. There are different shapes, different basic shapes that you can quill paper into. These consist of a tight coil, loose coil, teardrop, marquise, heart, loose scroll, C scroll, no, not that kind of C scroll, but C scroll, S scroll, heart scroll, and spiral. And you can put these things all together, and they've been inlaid into furniture, into trinket boxes, or just onto a framed sheet of paper for its own sake, for art's sake. beautiful things.
Yeah, I mean, we should put some pictures up in the show notes.
Absolutely. So put up a picture of this one. The largest ever piece of quilling, 19 meters by 15 meters. And it's a depiction, and it's bloomin' accurate. It's a depiction of Van Gogh's Starry Night.
Wow.
Made entirely out of coiled and spiraled little strips of paper.
Somebody had way too much time on their hands.
They did. This was created by a team of people in Vietnam only a handful of years ago. Stunning.
One subject that I didn't look at, talking of cutting paper, which was very popular because you weren't really allowed to make portraits of people in France, was this chap called Silhouette.
Yes, I've heard
I don't know
of that.
whether you've done any research on Silhouette, because I haven't. I just know that there are people who can take a small pair of scissors and make a thing that looks like my face.
Absolutely. This is the joy, dear listeners, of the partnership between Bruce and myself. Whatever one of us hasn't got around to researching, through no method of coordination whatsoever, 9 times out of 10, it turns out the other person has done that research. So we fill in each other's... I have.
Hey!
I went down that route. Yeah. So Silhouette was a French gentleman whose name was Etienne de Silhouette. And he was a minister, a finance minister. And around the 7 Years' War, they were having some financial difficulties. And in 1759, Monsieur Silhouette imposed a little bit of austerity on the French people. And because of that, the word silhouette became synonymous with doing things on the cheap, essentially. And during that period of time, lots of, I was going to say cuts, that's way too obvious a pun, were being made. And people were using cut-out pieces of paper, or card at least, to make little portraits. So those who couldn't afford to have a portrait painter create a beautiful little miniature of their loved ones to put inside a pendant or a locket. People started making these portraits out of paper, and they were just black, just no detail, but an incredibly detailed outline, but no detail within the image itself. They were originally called profiles or shades. But eventually, because they were the cheap version of portraiture, they became known as silhouettes after Monsieur de Silhouette. I say these things are done on the cheap and much easier than a portrait and so on, but you can really tell the image of the person that the likeness portrays. They're incredibly detailed.
Tearing up bits of paper, obviously, is something that you need to do to make papier-mâché.
Papier-mâché? I never thought of doing any research on papier-mâché.
Oh, don't worry, Simon. I've been there.
There we go.
I've gone down that rabbit hole.
In that case, after you, good sir.
Well, papier-mâché is one of those things that has been around a long time because it's a cheap way of making something that's solid. I don't know whether you, as a child, made papier-mâché heads using a balloon.
Yes, certainly, yes. So you inflated a balloon, you wrapped it in wet, gluey paper, and then you had the fun of popping the balloon and peeling it out from the inside after the papier-mâché had set. Yes,
that's right. So yes, popping the balloon was the fun bit. And it's just one of those materials that it's not toxic. So kids can use it. It's not limited by size, so you can get up as big as you like. I mean, the biggest papier-mâché thing that I found is in Phuket. And it's an elephant wearing a top hat.
Really?
And it's 19 feet high.
No.
Yeah. It's 19 feet long and about 15 feet wide. Papier-mâché, the whole thing. And then there's those heads that they wear at carnivals.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Things, all sorts of things. A lot of papier-mâché turns up in carnivals.
Right. You just have to hope it doesn't rain. I'm assuming papier-mâché is French for mashed paper.
It is. It is.
Great. How literal.
And I'm sure it's known by other names in other countries. I do know what it's called in South America because they use it to make a thing.
Do they?
Now, the thing that they make isn't Mexican.
Okay, so...
It's actually a piñata.
I would have got there if you'd given me the time.
But did you know that piñatas aren't originally Mexican?
No, I didn't. Where are they from?
China.
Of course it is.
Of course, the piñata is naturally from China.
Right.
Marco Polo brought this idea of piñatas back from China to Italy,
Right.
where they were seen as being great fun and a harvest thing where you hit the evil and release the good.
Oh, how nice.
And they used to be made of pot.
Okay.
These days, they're mostly made of lacquered papier-mâché, or they're made of pots that are actually decorated with ribbons of paper.
Right. Okay.
And they are beautiful. And they have a proper piñata has 7 points, and they're supposed to be like the 7 deadly sins.
Oh, okay.
The other thing that's a clue to their origin is a lot of piñatas are shaped like animals, for example, bears, cows,
Yes.
things to do with the Chinese calendar.
Very good. Right. See, my limited experience of piñatas comes from children's birthday parties. Often, shop bought from a local supermarket chain. And then they're almost invariably donkeys. Because what could be more Mexican than a donkey? And therefore, it's never occurred to me that they came in other animal forms, let alone that they would be representative of Chinese culture. How interesting.
I think that's all I have to say about paper art. What about you, Simon?
Yeah, I think I'm spent on that as well. I'm now lacquered.
I'm machéd.
We've stepped up to the crease. We've put ourselves into the fold.
So all we have to do now is to cut this down to the required time, and we're away. Thank you very much for listening. I mean, we've really enjoyed having you here. Well, no, we haven't, because you're not here.
You're here with us in spirit.
Do you ever wonder where people are when they're listening to us?
Yeah, frequently.
I think they can probably tell us that in the comments.
In the
can't
comments.
they?
I think they can. That's what they're there for. So there we go. That has been Factoraly. I've been Simon Wells.
I've been Bruce Fielding.
And you've been our listeners. Thank you.
Thank you for being our listeners. We do appreciate it.
Indeed. Come back again soon.
Au revoir.
Bye-bye.